everybody. It's Dennis LaRue here, and it's another hashtag Steel Toes Required quote of the week. It's the first one for 2018, and what better way to start off our very first one than to introduce to you two very, 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 very special people with me today, and here they are. There's my buddy Hudson. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
See all the hearts they're giving you? They love you. And with him, his sister, Zoe. Say hi, Zoe. Say hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Aww. Isn't it great? I am here in California, spending the week with them. Say bye-bye, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Say bye, Hudson.
Bye.
All right. See you later. I'm going to finish this off. Mwah. This is awesome. I love these moments. Here it is. Everybody saying hi to you. Everybody saying hi.
Hi.
So this week's hashtag Steel Toes comes to you live from Oxnard, California. Incidentally, the former training area of my beloved Dallas Cowboys. Oh, I wish they were here. They probably are here after not making the playoffs. But anyway, we'll save that for another week. Right now, we talked about last week a very important subject. We talked about the importance of reading, and not just, reading for reading's sake, but the importance of digesting what we read. It's not the amount of books we read. Now, if you can read 200 books in a year, or 400, or, and eliminate all the distractions and read as much as you want, that's great. But it's retaining what you read. That's important, which ties directly into this week's quote, which I already, if you saw my post earlier, comes from Darren Hardy. Now, those of you that know who Darren Hardy is, he needs no introduction, but for those of you that do, here it is. Darren Hardy he's a New York Times best-selling author. He is an excellent speaker, and if you haven't, go to my Facebook page. Here, you're there. Go down, you'll see a little post for Darren Daily. Now, he does a daily 3 to 5 minute video every day of the week, and they are incredible. I've been watching them for a couple of years now. I highly recommend them. Go get on. They're free. Yep, that's right. Free. Free. Go get them. And his quote really rocked my world. I read this, I think it was last year, and it was so good, I wrote it on a green card because it's money. It is money, and it's powerful. And here it is. He said this. He said, the curse of knowledge is thinking you know it all and doing none of it. Did you get that? The curse of knowledge is thinking you know it all and doing none of it. I'm telling you right now, that steps on my toes big time. And Rob and Jared, I know you've heard that before because I shared it in BNI. So for my BNI members down here in San Antonio, you've heard me use it before. That's how powerful it is. When I shared it with you, it's the first time I read it. And think about that for a minute. Here we are, reading these books and digesting them and ingesting them. And, we've got, maybe you're that person like me. I'm guilty of this. I am a repertoire. I mean, I am a walking Wikipedia of useless information. I get made fun of all of the time for knowing all kinds of stuff that just don't amount to a hill of beans. My wife one time called me a KIA, a know-it-all. Now see, here's the difference though. The difference between the know-it-all and the wise person is action. Action is where it's at. Wisdom acts. Just because you have a lot of knowledge doesn't make you wise. A wise person has tested the information and applied it to themselves or their situations or their businesses or whatever, and they've tested it to see, A, does it work? And if it does, why? Or B, it doesn't work, and why? And then C, share it with somebody else. Share their lessons learned. Why am I using these quotes? These are leaders who have tested and tried principles that have impacted their lives, and I've been doing the same. So for me, one of my goals this year was to read. I actually wrote down 100 books. Well, then I read my quote last week and said, you know what? I know how I read, and I know how long it takes me to read. So I'm going to go with one a week. And so I told you, I was asked by Amy, I see you out there, Amy, my number 33, and she asked what book I was reading. And I said I was reading Acres of Diamonds. Well, I read it last week. And man, I'll tell you what, that book rocked my world. It's real short. It's only about 20, 30 pages, depending on how it's bound or published. And here's what I learned from it. I learned that there are many educated people who will want to make a difference in their lives, and they'll go to school, or they'll learn about a subject, and they'll do everything possible. And then they realize, you know what? I've got all this knowledge, and what I want to do with it is I want to move to across the country, or I want to go here. And maybe it was to strike gold or to get into steel, all kinds of different industries. This was written in the early 1900s. And so these people would give up their homes, their lands, where they were sitting at currently, and get educated, and then they would move and uproot themselves. And whoever they sold their property to, or wherever they were at, what it was that they were looking for was right there in their hometown or in their own property. Thus the title Acres of Diamonds. And so here's what I learned from that. I learned that the grass isn't always greener on the other side. You got to grow where you're planted, because if you dig deep, and some diamonds, you got to go through a lot more fertilizer to get to, if you know what I'm saying. You've heard me say that before. Grow where you're planted, and the significance, the success, the things that you are trained to look for them close to home. You know why we don't look close to home for those things? Because we're familiar with home. We're familiar with the people around us. We're familiar with the businesses around us, maybe. We're familiar. And the more familiar you are with things, guess what? You tend to ignore them. You tend to disregard them. And you tend to overlook them. So, what I learned from Acres of Diamonds is grow where you're planted, and take off the blinders and go about each day with a new set of eyes, looking for what you're looking for right there where you're at. So, that's knowledge. Now, wisdom is, I've shared it with you. And now we got to take action, because here it is. Our problems, you've heard me say this too, so let's start off the new year with fundamentals. Fundamentals. It's not information or education that is our problem. We are the most informed and educated population known to man. Wikipedia, Google, besides all the old-fashioned ways. It's application and execution makes the difference. Wisdom is the connector between those two. The result of information and education with application and execution is wisdom. That's wisdom, that's success, that's significance, that is reaching your full potential. And I said, Rob, I see that. What if you just like change? You know what? That's a good question, Rob. My answer to you is this, is I'm that way. I like change too. I bounce around a lot. I'm like the bass. I'm like a trout in Pennsylvania on the opening day of trout season. There are lures everywhere, bright and shiny. I mean, you're looking all over. But at some point, if you're constantly changing, the question I have for you is when do you stop? When do you know you found it? When have you put in the roots and got the stability in place to go in the direction that you want to go? Because if you're constantly changing, the one thing that you're missing is the stability and the foundation. So make sure you got your foundation. And I just challenge you. If you're changing because that's not where you're supposed to be, okay. But you need to ask your question. What is it you're looking for? If you define what you're looking for, you may not change as much because you might see it. But you got to grow where you planted. Amy, the kids went downstairs. Their attention span is woo. But they went downstairs and they are precious. I love them so much. Rob, I see you. I get it, boring. I get it. But I love you, brother. You're doing great things. Keep it up. So here we go. Here it is. You know what? Understand this, that knowledge is a blessing. I am not discounting knowledge whatsoever. Knowledge is a blessing. But that blessing is not to be kept inside. It's not to be kept just for you. Bring them back upstairs. Knowledge is not meant to be just kept with you. Because if you keep it inside, if you keep all that knowledge to yourself, what happens is you become what I call an intellectual egghead. You got it all knowledge, you got it all here, but you're not acting on it. Do you want to be a blessing to others? Then share what you know. Get out there and share what you know. Share what you've learned. Share the ups, share the downs. I'll tell you what, if you really want to have an impact on people, share your failures. Failures, oh man, failures. People want to see, we're on Facebook. Everything on Facebook. Everybody's having a great day. Everybody's changing the world. Everybody's doing everything. But very few people share failure. Now, I know a few of you do, and I do as well. You know what? When you fail, you take ownership and you share what you learn from it, because you know what? You're setting the groundwork for others to learn from. And also, it's also called authenticity. There's nothing worse than the know-it-all who knows everything and appears to be Teflon proof. Nothing sticks. They're always perfect. And eventually you start not respecting them anymore. You think, and sometimes you just say, I've done this. I've said, you know what? Nothing ever happens wrong with this guy. I'm going to quit listening to him because it makes me feel worse off than ever before. So with all that said, I'm chasing rabbits. So let's bring it back on the trail and bring it down. Amy, I love it. I have a doctorate in failure. Amen. Not that you do, but I agree with you 100%. I have a doctorate in failure as well in many areas. So bring it around. The curse of knowledge, Darren Hardy says, is thinking you know it all and doing none of it. My friends, you've listened here, and I appreciate you because you're taking time to not just be know-it-alls, but you're doing it. You're doing it all. So go find your acre of diamonds, starting where you're at and where you're planted, and grow. This is a new year, 2018, new blessings. And with blessings come my now customary blessing to you. And that is, I pray a blessing of bread over you that you may know no hunger. I also pray the blessing of salt, that you and your life will be flavorful and rich for yourself and for others. And I also pray that you would be blessed with wine, that there would be joy and prosperity for you, your family, for your business, and everything that you touch. I pray the Midas touch on you, if you will. And then finally, I pray the love of Christ upon you and His blessing on you always. I've enjoyed being with you. Next week, you'll notice the scenery behind me because I'll be back in my office in San Antonio, ready for hashtag steeltoesrequired number 14. Go make it a great week. I appreciate you. God bless you. And good night.